soldier, writer, scientist of the past, engineer in the past to make it to the future. Writing about my life to give to the next generation. Moving forward, embracing my life, just like a kiss, accepting the task. Into the past, back to the future. My journey is to make it. Outpace death by living long. Winning the race in front of Lazarus, crossing the line. Longevity, success. Make the win. Got the ring. Gonna live again. Better than a king.
What do you remember? Agent Broda sat across from me. We both were at a small metal table. A holographic projection of me as a 12-year-old floated a few inches from its surface. I said, I pretty much remember everything. If I was able to record it on my pad, I did. Otherwise, I wrote it down. Broda interrupted. Your pad, so you were able to use it in the past. I nodded. Sporadically. The issue was keeping it charged up for the first 40 years. I started out with a couple of Leyden jars and a series of vacuum tubes and circuits. It was about the 70s I started using it as a backup. Technology was good enough then. The holographic image of me turned green. Broda said, "Did you know the plane would be transported to the future?" I nodded. My hologram changed from white to green again. My pad and Intel latch were on the table. The pad had a bunch of nicks and cuts from 100 years of abuse. The screen cracked 60 years ago, but the thing still worked. I used layers of cellophane for about 30 years to help protect it. The thing saved my life many times. I used it as a translator, a map, a knowledge base, and pretty much everything that helped me survive a primitive world. After 1950, I worked behind the scenes to help bring about technology that would eventually be mainstream in 2017. The Intel latch stopped working decades ago. It used to be useful as a watch until about 1932. It stopped working and I couldn't fix it. And being right 2 times a day wasn't worth the headache, but I kept it anyway. How old are you? Agent Broda asked. 112 years old. The hologram turned yellow and said, "Born 2025. The voice sounded like a kid. She asked, "How?" I shrugged. I had been trying to figure that out for decades. One moment I'm riding the Hyperloop to San Francisco, then I find myself in France 1917, near Arras. Agent Broda tapped at the table's surface. Amazing. It was, I smiled. She cleared her throat. Your mom and great granddaughter have been notified. Your mom should be here in a couple of hours. I nodded. Your great granddaughter should be here within the hour. She was visiting your tomb when we called her. I chuckled. I see an awkward family moment happening. Despite Broda's attempt to remain professional, she laughed with me. I suppose, she said, then she cleared her throat and said, "Computer, please set it to record. Also, record biometrics." A disembodied voice said, "Set to record on command. We'll record biometrics." Broda said, "Record," and I began to reconstruct my life. I was 12 when I took the Tokyo Hyperloop to San Francisco. I was supposed to meet Gramps. He told me we were going to the Space Needle, which got me excited. Who would? Bay. 2 days up a thin filament to 100 miles high. Then we would transfer to the Hotel Orbital and spend 3 days in space. The return trip would be by drop shuttle. Everyone talked about it. Wayne, my best friend, said it was great. I believed him and told Gramps this. He laughed. I wondered what Gramps would think now of his little topper. I sighed and looked out the window. Flight 008 just pulled out onto the runway when the captain announced there was a special guest on today's flight. Like everyone else, I looked around wondering who could it be. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "our special guest is not only a famous science fiction writer and famous scientist, but a veteran of not 1 war, but 5. I chuckled when I realized he was talking about me. Everyone on board applauded. I heard lots of thank you for your service. A flight attendant stopped by and asked if I needed anything. I beamed and said I was good and asked her to thank the captain. I was an old man who appreciated the acknowledgement. She returned the smile and said, "Of course." I looked at my watch. I wasn't sure of the exact time when it was going to happen, but I knew it would be a few hours after takeoff. I remembered looking at the vid when the captain said there was a strange cloud directly in front of us. Over the intercom, he said we would see the multicolored sky if we looked to the left out of the side windows. He assured us that the Hyperloop tube was strong enough to withstand Cat 6 hurricanes, and that ComCentral said at best this storm was a Cat 2, and most of the trip would be about 300 meters underwater anyway. A minute later, we saw an old-style commercial jet emerge from the colored clouds. I remembered thinking if that old plane could make it out, then the Hyperloop would be fine. I went back to looking at the vid. Playing was a documentary about World War I and the technology in the 1910s. I wondered what I would do if somehow I lived back then. One of the loop attendants walked by asking everyone to make sure all loose items were properly secured. We were about to begin full acceleration. The captain, over the intercom, said we would be in San Francisco Loop Port in a few hours. I nodded and made sure my pad was in my jacket pocket with the wireless charger. I had recharged my pad just before we left Tokyo, so it was good for another 80 hours. I felt a smooth surge and was gently pushed back into my seat. A few minutes later, we entered the strange cloud formation. I felt dizzy and my vision blurred, then everything went black. I don't remember how long I was unconscious. I woke up cold and hungry. I was out in the open covered in debris and still seat belted into my seat. No one else was around me. I undid my seat belt and followed a shallow trail across fairly barren land. It took a while for me to reach the nearest town. I figured it was a town. There were lots of damaged stone and wooden buildings. Rubble was everywhere. The entire area looked like a colored version of one of the War World War scenes from the vid. Then I heard someone yell out, "Ajin Num, Ajijn Num." It was an old man, huddled inside a doorless building. Its roof looked like it had been blown off. He gestured feverishly for me, I thought, to run to the building. I heard some machine gun shooting in the distance and decided running would be a good idea. When I made it, he seemed to be scolding me. I understood some of what he said, but not enough for his increasingly impatient demeanor. I remembered my pad and felt for it in my jacket pocket. It was there and I took it out. I found the Langtrans app and tapped it. His voice sounded desperate. He stopped talking when the pad repeated what he said in English. "What is wrong with you? Are you alone? Are you stupid?" I said, "I am lost and don't know how I got here. I need help." The pad repeated in French. He was astounded and looked at me for a moment. He seemed unsure what to do. The machine gun sound got closer. He grabbed my hand and said, "Follow me. Jean-Luc will know what to do." And so began my new life. I did what I could and made it to America after the war and fought in the Second World War with the 92nd Infantry. Then Korea, then Vietnam, then the First Iraqi War, and I was done. I made a living as a writer and an engineer in between wars, and after that, I married and had kids, who in turn had kids. I suppose this would be my last trip. I was 112 years old and didn't think I had much time left, but I never forgot that day I was on the Hyperloop. I remembered the old airplane streaking out of the colored storm with wisps of clouds trailing behind it. Through the years, I'd run into fellow passengers. We formed a group called the Displacement Society and made it our mission to find others. We've even discovered those who came from beyond 2036 and some before. That was how we pieced together that this flight might be the one. Flight 008 would take off in 2017 and land in 2036. After we reached cruising altitude, the captain turned off the seat belt sign. A few minutes later, a mother and two kids, one boy and one girl, approached me. The mom asked if it would be okay to approach. She has been a fan of my writing since she was a little girl, and her kids loved my Whiptail Jones adventure series. Each had books 3 and 4. I smiled and asked if they'd like me to autograph each copy. The mom gushed, and the kids excitedly said, "Please." I laughed and signed each one. I said I was working on a new Whiptail Jones adventure, and did they want to hear about it? The enthusiastic yes was heartwarming. Then the captain made an announcement over the intercom. He said we were approaching an unusual weather pattern that was most likely a result of global warming. He said we would maintain this heading for a while, until something changed. I looked at the kids and said, "Looks like Whiptail will have to wait." The frowns and pouting were moving, even from the kids. I said, "Don't worry. I got a feeling we are about to start our own amazing and fantastic journey." I got confused looks. My smile broadened. I was your age when I was on a trip from Tokyo to San Francisco. Travel was different, of course, but after I made it to the end, I was in for the surprise of my life. And it's gonna happen to you too, and your mom. I looked the mom in the eyes and said, "My inspiration for most of my sci-fi series." She cocked her head to the side. I only smiled as the captain announced we would be descending to a new altitude and deviating around the weather cell. We may catch some minor turbulence, but as a precaution, we should fasten seat belts when seated. She and the kids thanked me. I said, "If you aren't in a hurry after we land, let's sit and chat. Maybe I can get your email address and send you advanced reader copies." "That would be amazing," she said. The flight attendants made a pass through the aisles, asking everyone to take their seats. I asked one of the attendants if I could have some sparkling water. She nodded, and a few minutes later she handed me a cup with fizzling water and ice. She left 2 small bottles with me. I relaxed and sipped, trying to imagine how would it feel. Tingly? Will I get a headache? Anything at all? I only remembered the blackness, going into the cloud when I was 12. Moments later, we descended into the strange colored clouds. It was about 4:58 am when we started. I heard a cough somewhere behind me. It was a society member. That was her sign that this was the moment it would happen. The clouds were not quite red, not quite blue, not quite green. There was a slight drop, and then nothing. Things cleared up, and the sky was clear blue and lovely looking. I smiled as I looked out the window. Tears started rolling down my cheeks. "I'm home," I whispered. It was magnificent. The Tokyo Hyperloop could be seen off to the left side of the plane. I was on that loop. Only a few people noticed and knew. We had planned this for years. 10 of us from the Displacement Society booked this flight, this wonderful flight back home. I undid my seat belt, got up, and slowly walked to the front. The flight attendants were agitated. I cleared my throat to get their attention. "Sir, you should be in your seat." I nodded. The year is 2036 now. Below us is one of the Hyperloop lines from Tokyo to San Francisco. The loop train that just entered into the storm carried me when I was 12. They all stood there, stunned and silent. I turned and walked back to my seat. Within minutes of fastening my seat belt, I promptly fell asleep. What may have been minutes later, a flight attendant gently shook me awake. "Yes," I said, yawning. "Are we landing?" "The captain would like to speak with you." I got up and said, "Certainly," and followed her to the front. The captain shook my hand and asked if I needed anything. I said I was good. He then cleared his throat and said, "How did you know?" I shrugged. "Captain, I had 100 years to figure that out. There are 9 others on this flight from this time period." "I can't believe that." He paused a moment, and I kept my mouth shut. "ATC contacted us. It took a while, but they finally figured out our radio frequency. This is crazy. We'll have an escort plane in a few minutes. Somehow, are we not only in the future, but we are only a few hours away from San Francisco?" I nodded. The captain's eyes were wide, and I could tell he was having a hard time dealing with this. All the other passengers would. Then I thought of Mom. To her, I only left, I assumed, not too long ago. I couldn't possibly imagine her shock hearing the news. "Captain," the co-pilot said, "our escort is here." The flight attendant asked, "Captain, what should we tell the passengers?" He thought a moment and inhaled. His mind raced, and then he said, "I'll make an announcement." He walked back into the flight cabin and closed the door. The flight attendant helped me to my seat. On the way, I spotted the mom and her 2 kids. As I passed, I said, "Your adventure begins." I leaned in close so that only the mom could hear. "I am sorry, but I am happy. We should keep in touch." Then I continued to my seat and sat. I am home. After the plane landed, we, as well as the crew, were paraded into a large room. 3 women and 2 men stood at the front. One of the society members, Ahmed, was with them. He only went back as far as 2015, so he was able to establish some serious contact. Apparently, he was able to convince some high-level officials in the IC. We became hidden knowledge, and the government expected us. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Agent Delu Broda, the local head agent. I don't know how to fully explain what happened to you, except only to say welcome to the year 2037. I don't know how to fully explain what happened to you, except only to say welcome to the year 2036. Some people shouted false flag, deep state, and lies. Agent Broda waited until everyone exhausted themselves. In a few minutes, a team of medical personnel will start examining each of you. We want to make sure what we have doesn't kill you and what you have doesn't make us sick. There have been several pandemics since 2017. We've already started looking for relatives, so hopefully, by the end of the day, you'll have a familiar place to stay. Any questions?" The room erupted into a mush of audio chaos. I am home. Agent Broda took me to a room and sat me at the small table with the holographic projection base in the center. She asked me questions before the doctor stepped into the room. His smile was wide and genuine. "How are you feeling, sir?" I said, "Old." We laughed. "I mean any aches and pains. Wait, I know the answer to that question." He took out a pad and held it up in front of me. There were several bright flashes of light, followed by a tingly sensation over my skin. A second later, I felt chilly. Another moment passed, and my skin felt normal. He tapped at the device, looked at me a few times, then said, "You've kept yourself in excellent shape." I nodded and smiled. He asked, "Good news or bad first?" I laughed, "I'm 112. He joined me and nodded. "Very well, you're no longer 12 years old." I smiled. "What's the bad news then?" He chuckled. "Continue what you are doing. With today's medical science, you can expect to see another 20 years, give or take a few." He paused a moment and thought. "For you, I'd say maybe another 30 years. Your organs are like that of a 50-year-old, and we can easily repair and replace any damaged ones. As long as you don't lose your mind, you'll be with us a while." "That's good to hear." He nodded. "So far, all things check. Your fingerprints and scans, including that bump just below your xiphoid process, show you are the real 12-year-old little boy that left a few hours ago." I nodded. "That small rice-looking thing." Agent Broda walked up and said, "Yes. After we retrieved data from your ident chip, most doubts about who you were disappeared." I am home. "Most, what happens now?" Agent Broda said, "Lots. Well, lots for mostly everyone else. You and a few others will be easy. We already have you in the database. For you specifically, it's just a matter of placing you in special status and updating all your biometric information. Adding 100 years to the system will require time." I thought a moment. I left in 2017. My great granddaughter would be 52 years old. Well, this was going to be an awkward family get-together. Mom was 40. "Recording off," Agent Broda said. Did I pass? My hologram remained green the entire time. "Very. Are you hungry? Can I get you anything before your granddaughter arrives." I said, "Thank you, but I'm good so far. I'm a bit nervous, as you can imagine." She nodded. "I can." We heard a knock at the door. Broda said, "Enter." "Ma'am," an agent at the door said, "the granddaughter is here." I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Broda asked, "Ready?" I nodded. "Show her in, please." The agent closed the door. A moment later, someone softly knocked and it opened. My granddaughter stood at the entrance. The years were kind to her. She said, "Gramps," and rushed toward me. I was too slow to get out of my chair. She hugged me tightly, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She sobbed and seemed too choked up to talk. I smoothed her hair and whispered, "Gramps is back." She released me. I don't know what to say. Hi would be a start." I laughed. She wiped her eyes and said, "Hi. You tell my greats yet?" She nodded. "We'll all meet tomorrow. You know, we still live in that old house." "Really? 20 years. It's been renovated, and thank you for the insurance money and the will." We both laughed. "Well, yeah, that too." Broda stood up and said, "I'll leave you two for the moment. We still have to process you and get you your new ident card." We had many things to catch up on and talked for hours. Then a knock at the door. Broda stepped in first. My mom followed. I teared up and stood. Mom looked around. She began, "You are." I beamed and blurted out, "Your son." She took a step back. "Agent Broda, what kind of sick joke is this?" she demanded. Her face turned red. "This old man can't possibly be my son. He was on the Hyperloop to San Francisco a few hours ago." Broda sympathetically said, "Fingerprints, scans, medical examination, and his ident chip all confirm it." No, I don't. I refuse to believe it. This is impossible." "Mom," I said in my old man's voice. She fainted. The doctor made sure she was okay. When she woke up, I asked, "Do you remember getting a special edition Whiptail Jones box set?" "How'd you know about that?" "I got it for my 20th birthday. The author sent it to me. That was 20 years ago." The note said, "To a special person, a special gift." I paused a moment, then said, "Don't I look familiar?" She paled and wavered, but didn't faint. "In that special box with the lock on it." She frowned. "The note said I'd get the key for my 40th birthday. I thought that crazy." I fished in my pocket and pulled out a key. I held it out to her. She slowly reached out with a mix of emotions displayed on her face. Suspicion, surprise, anger, sorrow, sadness. "You," she leaned in close. "Oh my goodness, it is you. You disappeared on a flight too." My granddaughter said, "Gramps, you're scaring her." For the first time, she looked at my granddaughter. "Gramps." "Yeah, I wonder how Gramps will feel knowing Topper is older than he is." "I need a drink," Mom suddenly said. And so it went. That late afternoon, after talking for hours more, we decided that I would sleep in my room tonight. In the morning, everyone would meet up at the old house and we'd talk some more. Mom had messaged Gramps earlier to tell him plans had changed and that he should make himself available for a group con. We took a self-drive cab home. It took me some time to remember how things worked. The added bonus was that I finally convinced Mom I was her child when the front door unlocked after it did a retina scan of my eye. The living room was disappointedly arranged differently than I remembered. It was still fantastic. A lackey, our android, greeted us at the door. It scanned me and turned to Mom. "Madam, this is a situation that is beyond my programming. Please update me. I'm at a loss as to how to proceed." "A lackey, I understand," Mom said. "Doc for the rest of the evening. We'll make the adjustments later." She turned and walked away. She stared at me for a moment. I smiled. Yeah, kind of freaking me out too, but I've had 100 years to adjust. Mom stood there indecisive, to hug me or not, to say son or not. To do many things she knew just hours ago or not. "It's okay. We can talk more in the morning. I think I remember." "No, I don't remember my way." She gave me a quick tour and suddenly stopped. She was exasperated. "What do I call you?" "By my real name, unless you think you'll feel comfortable calling me by my official name." You read any of my other books?" She blushed. I coughed. "Well, this will be a time for adjusting." We both gave a nervous laugh. After a minute, she led me back to my room and said she had to make some calm calls. I nodded and said, "I think I'm good until tomorrow. I know where the bathroom is and I know where the kitchen is. I think I'm good for the rest of the day." She nodded and had a mournful look on her face and said, "Okay," her voice trailed off. Later tonight, dinner. "I really missed your avocado toast and cheese sandwich." She blushed. "I made that this morning." I interrupted her and said, "To me, it's been 100 years, literally." She looked down, started crying, turned, and hurried into the living room. I looked around my room and slowly things started to come back to me. My desk and computer were against one wall, and the vid was mounted on another. My bed was across from the vid, and some of my toys were still on the floor. What a messy kid I was. Then I remembered what I most wanted to do. I said, "Computer, start into nature, please." A female voice said, "Full immersion or on the screen." My heart raced. "Full immersion, please." The room went pitch black for a moment. Then it started. It washed over and around me. A field of huge sunflowers surrounded me. I exhaled and felt the embrace of the sun's warmth and cried. I am home and no longer displaced. My long journey finished. I am finally home. The end.
Got a life to win. Traveling through the looking glass, my future taken forever. Never seeing my life past the point, taken to the past, living life forward. Surviving through the years, forgotten in the past. Child, soldier, writer, scientist of the past, engineering the past to make it to the future, writing about my life to give to the next generation, moving forward, embracing my life just like a kiss, accepting the task. Into the past, back to the future, my journey is to make it. My journey is to make it. Outpace death by living long, winning the race in front of Lazarus, crossing the line, longevity to success. Made the wind, got the rain, gonna live again, better than again. Traveling through the looking glass, my future taken forever. Never seeing my life past the point, taken to the past, living life forward. Surviving through the years, forgotten in the past. Child, soldier, writer, scientist of the past, engineering the past to make it to the future, writing about my life to give to the next generation, moving forward, embracing my life just like a kiss, accepting the task. Into the past, back to the future, my journey is to make it. Is to make it. Outpace death by living long, winning the race in front of Lazarus, crossing the line, longevity, success.